everyone, welcome to the full moon in Aries Soundscape, which has been recorded here at my gorgeous Tipi at Kudhva in North Cornwall. Who can believe we're into October? It's finally, I don't know, it's felt like all summer we've been talking about October and autumn as some kind of epic line in the sand, and suddenly here we are. And everything feels the same but different. Actually, the really exciting thing that I'm definitely feeling, and I've been feeling it through my work and through my sessions and through my own energy channeling, has been that we're finally into a real season of change. We've been in this kind of very, to me, what feels like a very heavy, watery energy for so much of the year so far. And I think finally we're emerging, like butterflies from the chrysalis on the other side. And I think there's a really big astrological reason for this, and this is really going to be underpinning our session together today, and all of the work that I'm doing right now in this couple of weeks is really about this kind of enormous astrological bookend, and the idea of closure and chapters shifting, new kind of vital energies coming to the surface and needing space in order to expand and to become. So we'll talk more about that in a moment, but I guess I just wanted to welcome you all, especially those of you who are new to my sessions. I've been running these sessions now for 6 months, and again, more of that in a minute. My very first session online was the new moon in Aries. I sent that session out on the 23rd of April, and it was the 24th that lockdown began. I remember recording that and then coming downstairs and seeing the news and feeling like maybe that was just the beginning of what might turn out to be a glorious experiment in the digital world. So I thank you all who've been there with me since the very beginning, and also those of you who are joining more recently. Things have evolved a lot. This will probably be the penultimate session I send to you from here in the TP before we get back into studio space again. So I hope you enjoy it. If you are in Cornwall or coming to visit, please come and see me. It's absolutely amazing here, and we've had something like 250 people through the TP this summer for one-to-one, for group sessions, for lots and lots of pair and couple sessions. And for me, that's been a really amazing, exciting experience to be working in slightly new ways with you all. So enough of me, more of you, and more of the energy we're working with. So the full moon in Aries is also called the harvest moon, and it's so called because we, according to the Farmer's Almanac and the indigenous tribes, the Native American tradition, this is the season for the big harvest. Obviously, we've started some harvest earlier in the summer. Those of us that live in agricultural areas will have been seeing the tractors around for a while, but this is the biggie. When we get into September and we get into the later part of September, this moon is really the one where the big level of harvest happens. And actually, traditionally, the harvest moon is the one that falls closest to the equinox, which was just over a week ago. So the harvest moon is a really beautiful one. It's really about completion in a very tangible way. And as those of you that work with me a lot will know, I've been really embracing in these last few months this idea of not just releasing on the full moon. You know, we tend to think the new moon is about seeds and manifesting and planting and new beginnings, and the full moon is all about endings, closing the circle and releasing that which no longer serves us. And all of that is true, and it's really important to do that releasing work as well, I feel. But for me, what's actually more important is this harvesting, the idea that rather than just always look at what we're letting go of, look at what we're keeping hold of. And it's, to me, it's kind of this glass half full mentality. It's really easy in a year like this, where there's been just such a lot going on, to really focus on what we've lost and maybe some of the more negative stuff. And actually, there is just a phenomenal amount of stuff that's just really positive and really wonderful and really full of opportunity and life and vitality and experience. So I'm really trying to see this phase of the year as an opportunity to look at what we can take forward, to look at all the new collaborations, the new partnerships, the new ways of living, the new ways of enjoying our space, hard as that may be and when compressed with other people in it, and really just trying to look at what we can harvest, what's been really good for us. So one of the things I'm going to do today, I really always like to read a lot of cards over the moon seasons, and it's obviously that's one thing it's hard to do online with you guys, but I always like to draw a couple of cards to have to hand throughout the sessions. I always work with Yasmin Boland's Moonology deck, just because it's a really, I think it's a really beautiful, kind of clear and simple deck, and it's a good kind of entry-level deck. If you're not used to working with cards, there's nothing kind of super complex to read into these oracle cards. They're really very clear and very much kind of simple to understand. So I've got the full moon in Aries, a fiery climax approaches. And I've also got the full moon cards, Surrender to the Divine, as we know the full moon is a magical time, and it's really a time about embracing nature, embracing the elements, embracing that as within, what is within us, embracing the connectedness of all, the collective, universal dharmic path, and really trying to make the most of that experience. So these are my 2 moon signifier cards. I'm also working as ever with the beautiful Moonchild Tarot, which has been the deck I've been felt most called to use here in the Tipi. The signifier, the key for Aries, is the Fool. So to show you this one a little closer. So the Fool is a card that can be quite divisive, like many of the major arcana. Death or the Devil spring to mind. It's not always met with positive vibes, but actually she's a really beautiful card. The Fool is really about the new beginnings, that kind of seed, the beginning, the child, embarking upon her journey, embarking upon her kind of foray, her rite of passage through the universe, her path. And the Fool is the Aries key, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, the child of the zodiac. And that Aries energy, that fiery Aries energy, is often really all about the kind of the rushing forward without looking what's going on, that kind of the way a child runs at a playground, kind of leaves everything else for dust. And actually you see it in this card. Our subject has her familiar, her kind of spirit animal there, and he's going ahead having a look at what's over the horizon, and she's running behind, like kind of charging forward, not really knowing what's coming. And I think that's a really relevant key for us all at this time, actually. We don't know what's coming, and that doesn't mean we have to be afraid of running towards it. So those are the cards I'm working with. I'm working a lot personally with a 3-card draw this week, really around the cycle of completion as we close the Aries circle, and all about really moving forward with confidence and vitality, this harvest mentality. So I really encourage you to do the same. If you're journaling along to this, some of the journal points that I would call to mind is, what am I harvesting from the last 6 months? How have I expanded in the last 6 months? Obviously the releasing is always worth considering as well. What do I need to release that no longer serves me? And think a little about fire. What's firing me up right now? What fires me up generally? What fire do I need? And actually a useful way to think about this is the elements within our star signs, our astrology. We have 3 fire signs. And Aries is this kind of like uncontrollable, kind of big, kind of just wildfire, like a bushfire. Leo is more like a really big barbecue. Lots of heat, lots of I guess vitality, but also in quite a controlled way. And Leo is very much that kind of confident, brave, strength, kind of solidarity, leadership, management aspect of us. And though there's a lot of fire required to deliver those aspects of our personality, and it's fire that needs a bit of shape and structure, not so with Aries. The 3rd fire sign, Sagittarius, is a very different kind of fire. I always see this as kind of a wafty smoke in the distance. Sagittarius is our nomadic sign, and the fire that Sagittarius needs is really internal. It's really about a driving force for adventure, for travel, for exploration. So these 3 aspects of fire are all available to us, but the one we're really tapping into in this full moon is this kind of really big, expansive energy. I mentioned these astrological bookends, and actually this is a really interesting thing. We did go into lockdown in the UK, and most of, whether you're watching this from beyond the UK, it was within a couple of weeks of the Aries new moon for most of the Western world, certainly most of Europe. In the UK, it actually was the new moon. The 24th was our first day of the lockdown. And the lunar cycles can work. You know, we have our 29-day cycle. The moon moves every 2.5 days, or it moves all the time, but it moves signs every 2.5 days. So we can look at the lunar cycles in a really kind of micro way, or in the way we're used to looking at them most frequently, the new and full moon. Or we can look at them in terms of the zodiac cycle, which is a 6-month span. And actually right now, that's what I'm finding most helpful. It's really instructive to look back to that date in March, to the end of March roughly, see what was going on for you then. What were your goals, ambitions, dreams, targets? What was on your vision list? What was on your new moon manifesting list for Aries? And if you have that written down, if you journal and keep hold of your journal, that's a really good thing to explore, because you'll probably find that depending on when you did your ritual around the new moon, things may have changed very quickly within a few hours of that journal, and that may have been the beginning of a really big journey for you. So this kind of comparison of beginning and end can be really supportive, and I encourage you to have a look into that over the course of your moon rituals. I'm going to move on. I'm always really aware of my battery when I'm doing these things from you in the teepee. It may not always last as long as I want it to, and I've got so much to say about this moon. I'm going to start putting my ritual together while I'm talking to you in the interest of saving time. So the oil that I've been working with, it's a real mashup. We've got some frankincense, which for me feels a lot to do with fire, woody, but it feels very much essential at the moment. Kind of the pure meditation oil. For those of you that get my Rock and Ritual boxes, there's going to be a really awesome frankincense incense set in the Libra one coming your way next week from a really beautiful artisan maker in East London who I'm really thrilled to be working with. So do look out for that. So we have frankincense, we have a bit of rose, although we're now into October, there's still plenty of roses in my garden, and it's a little bit of fiery floral, hot floral is always a nice thing. And I've tempered this with peppermint and eucalyptus, which may seem slightly odd choices, but it's actually a really mega mix. And these are really a nod to the fact that much as our moon is currently in Aries and we're really working with this vitality and kind of solar plexus fire energy, we are in a solar Libra season now, which also feels much needed. The air season of balance, very much about equilibrium, harmony, healing, which feels really resonant with this fire season as well, this kind of healing fire. Nothing burns away the old like a good old fire. But the respiratory system is what we most associate with Libra energy, the lungs and the higher heart area. It's the time of year, certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, where colds and flu come in. Nothing more needs to be said about the obvious pandemic, but certainly this time of year is a time when the respiratory organs are the ones we focus on if we're working with seasonal yoga, if we're working with Ayurveda. Ayurveda could be moving into Vata, which is the air season. So peppermint and eucalyptus are really there as a nod to kind of synchronizing our energies with that Libran flow, and also to just help us get a bit of clarity. We've got lots of fire and lots of vital energy and confidence moving forward out of the solar plexus. We don't want there to be so much fire that we completely burn up. So that little cooling eucalyptus and peppermint aspect is there to support and balance us. So I like to use this oil in ceremony. I like to use it across my impulse points, along my jawline, and on the third eye. We know, of course, that the same part of the brain is responsible for memory and smell and sound. So these three go hand in hand. I feel that oils are a really supportive tool in sound journeying, and I encourage you to use them if you don't already. I'm also using these oils to anoint my crystals for this session. I'm just going to show you this completely mega quartz, which I found, I didn't dig it out the ground, but I acquired it recently in a trip to Wales, and it really is spectacular. So it's a really good way to charge your crystals, particularly if, like us here in Cornwall, your full moon weather is not conducive to leaving your precious crystals out, although it won't do them any harm. I know some of you don't feel called to leave crystals out in the moonlight when it's really terrible weather. A really beautiful geode like this is a wonderful way to charge your crystals. Of course, sacred smoke is fantastic. There's many other ways. Salt, I always put them in my full moon bath. There are many different ways you can approach this. I really like to place my crystals onto these geodes, and this really is a supportive way to charge them as we move into the lunar cycle. So I'm just going to pop all of these, or as many as I can pile on, and then we'll talk about these momentarily. But I am on the chat with you guys today, so if anyone has any questions as we move through the ritual stages and just kind of set up a little grid, set up some energy vortexes that we can work with, then just drop a message into the chat. If I miss it or I'm for some reason not with you the whole way through, I will obviously come back to you just as soon as I can. So the grid, the geode is a wonderful way to charge. I also really like to amplify with some sacred herbs. Again, I'm still working through my last little bit of my Californian sage, which I brought back from the wonderful sage winds last autumn. God, that's nearly a year ago. That seems crazy, doesn't it? I was thinking I was only in California a few months ago, but actually it was last November. Isn't that insane? Where's the year gone? And I do love white sage. As I posted recently for those of you on my Instagram, it's really important to be aware that this is a sacred healing herb in the shamanic tradition and in many indigenous cultures. This really is a very sacred plant, and it should be treated respectfully. I'm mindful of bundling sage in a way that makes it look like a bouquet. That's really not what it's for. You can't burn crystals, so I'm not sure why I would bundle my sage with a crystal. Slightly different for certain. Selenite's a slight exception, although I sometimes wonder if burning selenite is really in its best interests. But one of the things I'm really spending time with, and I've been reading a lot lately with some wonderful suppliers, is really looking at Cornish sage, looking at some herbs which are very local and combining them with the herbs that feel relevant to me from a training and a sacred perspective. So the next bundles I share with you are going to be courtesy of a wonderful new collaborator who is in Bristol, here in the southwest, and she is a florist by trade. She is putting all of her wonderful plant-based skills into some beautiful bundles of native herbs for us. So I'm really excited to start working with those. I think that will really amplify our practices. Meanwhile, of course, you would generally be passing your crystals through the smoke, like so. Being sure to invoke your energy, the energy of the session you're working with at the same time. And your intention, if you're already clear on your intention, now's a good time to bring it in. And again, I encourage you to think about some of those full moon themes. Harvesting is a really powerful theme on this particular moon. But your intention can be around anything. This is also a time for planting seeds, as we'll come to in a moment. So words that might be helpful are expansion, creativity, empowering, embodying. I'm going to set the centre of the grid with a generator crystal. That's the one with the 6 faces meeting at a point at the top. This really helps to amplify the energy of the whole grid. And if you're working with a Reiki or other energetic attunement, it will hopefully, I believe, help you to connect more deeply there. So the strawberry quartz going at the centre there is, I really like to work with a quartz generally in the centre of the grid, but strawberry quartz has that little bit of firepower in it as well, which feels appropriate for Aries energy. I've piled all these in now and I won't be able to see them very well, so I'm going to come up here a little more so I can see what I'm doing with you. So other crystals that we are working with today, the big one that's really important for Aries work is carnelian. So I have quite a few little pieces of carnelian here today, and I also have my very special, beautiful carnelian ball. And carnelian can be from a really deep orangey red to almost yellow in colour. This ball I love because it has all the shades of carnelian for me. So when I'm in meditation this season, I really like to sit with this in my palm, and I think it just is the most wonderful tool. So carnelian is the primary crystal stone of the solar plexus region. It's really wonderful as a fire starter for accessing your Agni in a fire, and it's a really powerful stone for vitality, for action, for getting stuff done. And that's really what we're coming to with the astrology of this season. As I'm just going to pop these on here. So we have, as well as this big Aries kind of bookend over the last 6 months, what we also have at the moment is a lot of Mars activity. Now Mars is Aries ruler, so it's really really relevant that Mars is very active right now. Mars is currently retrograde. We're in retrograde on September the 9th in Virgo season. And a retrograde is not necessarily always a bad thing. People tend to see it bad. I mean, all it means is that we're on pause. Things might be a little more tricky to work through, or that we're just taking a breather from the prevailing energy of that retrograding planet. Mars energy, many people know Mars as the warrior, is all about action, moving forward, decisions, just kind of mental clarity. The fire suit, or in tarot, we're working with wands, and it's all about kind of intellectual aspects of life, knowledge, slightly wisdom, although that's a little bit more in the air suit, but it's very much about kind of sharpness, quick thinking, action, being proactive, motivation, confidence, courage and bravery, all of those big fire energies. So Mars being in retrograde just means that all those things are a little bit dialed down for now. And actually that's not a bad thing, because we're coming off this very long, strange season, and this definitely feels like a time to start looking at moving forward, but we don't want to run. The nature of the Fool is that kind of running towards things, and Arid energy can be quite prone to being quite over the top, aggressive, a little bit too hard, a little bit too blunt. This moon is a little bit of a time to be aware of arguments and some communication mess ups where things just get a bit overboiled. So A Mars retrograde over this full moon is by no means a bad thing. Actually, for me, it feels really good because Mars stays retrograde until November the 14th. That gives us a nice chunk, a 6-week chunk of time to really look at our goals, our visions, our dreams, our targets, all the stuff we were writing down at the astrological new year, the Aries new moon back in March, and going, how is this now? Is this working? Do I want this? Does this still apply? These goals may have been ripped apart by what's happened in the world. Maybe new goals have appeared. Maybe lockdown has gifted you a new job, a new hobby, a new interest, a new relationship. Think about your goals. Think about what you're moving towards and how that looks now. And this 6-week period of Mars retrograde is really the perfect time to reframe your understanding of abundance and what you're working towards, what your goals are. And and hopefully when we get to November the 14th, we have a really nice opportunity to fire that starting gun and to move forward with all those new revised ideas and ideologies. So that in mind, I'm also putting another really recognizable solar plexus stone on here, citrine, the stone of abundance. It just feels particularly potent for me right now. I'm just going to slightly rearrange these carnelians. It's going to do a very good job there. And the other fairly solar plexus-y stone, iron pyrite, generally associated with Leo, but it also can be, as with all of these stones, can really work into Mars energy, into Aries energy as well. Iron pyrite is really about mental expansion. It's a stone that was often used in business and in ancient times to really encourage kind of smart thinking and good business thinking. So this feels quite relevant, and I'm going to pop him on fairly centrally. I've got one little curveball here, just this one little boy, if you can see him very well. He's called chiastolite, and I don't really use him very much. But he's a really nice little stone that's about transition. I tend to use aventurine or labradorite if I'm talking about transition and stones of change, companions through times of change. But this is a really creative stone, and I really like the energy it's holding this week. So I felt really called. I'm not quite sure if it's chiastolite or chiastolite, so I heard it's called both, but chia, like chia seeds, and then astolite. And you probably can't see very well because it's really gloomy in here. We're having a terrible storm right now, so the light's really low. But it's kind of a little bit like labradorite, but without that kind of prismy effect. So kind of browns and golds, kind of in that solar plexus vibe as well. So we're going to pop him on as well. Lemon jade is something that's been calling me lately, and I'm not really that into jade actually. And jade is so important in so many ancient cultures, obviously specifically in the Chinese culture. But jade itself is all about a kind of stone of self. It's really about your dharma, finding your path. And the lemon variation of it is kind of a slightly more mellow aspect. It's really really interested in interconnectedness, finding your place within the collective, finding your path as one of many paths rather than just something so singular. And for me this year, my watchword for the year that I journaled back in January is collaboration. And it's been really interesting to see how lockdown has, for me, fostered so many really very interesting collaborations and created the opportunity to move forward with many more of those. So I think that it's really interesting to think about while we're revising our goals for the remainder of the year and for these last 3 months, incredibly, of 2020. It's really interesting to think about the place amongst others. You know, in a way, we're being encouraged to think about ourselves as islands, as being alone, being isolated at the moment. But I think there's a real place now for looking at the collective and taking a big step towards a greater understanding of what that means for us. Angelite, something else I don't really use. It's one of those new age ones that I have been long suspicious of. And actually, I didn't realise till quite recently that angelite is actually really heavily compressed celestite, which is one of my favourites. And angelite is a really kind of, it's a stone about attuning, not just the angelic realm, but really just attuning in the higher psychic levels. So really kind of moving out of the closer koshas, moving out to your higher spiritual awareness, moving to wholeness. And I feel like when you're kind of brainstorming, thinking about goals, bigger picture stuff, this is a really useful companion. You want your goals and visions and dreams to be moving in a direction that you're really, that you can really tune into, that you can feel really positive and excited about. So someone came to the TP last week and was asking me about angelite, and I didn't know much about it, so I went to read up and picked a few pieces up, and we'll see how they want to play today. I'm also working with rose quartz. Rose quartz is the Libra stone. Again, if you're part of the Rock and Ritual community, you'll be getting a really special piece of rose quartz next week, which I'm excited about. Gorgeous generator point. So rose quartz embodies heart energy, heart healing, heart harmony, and harmony is the word I want to focus on. Heart harmony and that kind of essence. Oh, smashing up my board. Kind of essence of the heart center. So Libran energy looks for balance, looks for equilibrium, and the Aries fire can be pretty full on, as we've been discussing. So I think a little bit of soothing, harmonious rose quartz energy is a benefit. I've only got 2 pieces of that today, so I'm just going to add a little clear quartz point, directing the energy today as well. And that's our board. I just wanted to show you also, I've got a few little bits of lepidolite here, which maybe I'll pop on there, I'm not sure. Lepidolite feels like it's been really relevant lately. I'm just getting through so much of it here in the sound space. Whenever people come for a session, they're always invited to take one of their crystals from their grid away with them, and it's just, I can't seem to buy enough lepidolite. It just keeps going like relentlessly. I only bought about 10 new pieces 2 days ago, and I'm down to 2 again. It's a stone that traditionally is associated with processing grief, actually. So it's something I used a lot last year, and it's really held a lot of appeal for me ever since. Looking into it, it's heavily to do with releasing old baggage, releasing that which no longer serves, and for that it's a really good full moon stone. And it just seems to be attracting a lot of people. I think a lot of people at the moment, the global kind of collective energy is about letting go of what isn't working. We've seen big movements arise this year, seeking to change the status quo, to challenge the things that we just kind of live with without really questioning in so many ways. And we a lot of this weighs us down all the time. So lepidolite, a really interesting one. It just keeps coming up for me, and I wasn't particularly going to put it on this grid, but it just feels like it wants to be there. So we'll place a little lepidolite in here as well. And there is our very colourful and gorgeous grid for the Aries full moon. I hope you like it. I'm aware the light's not super amazing in here, so I will take a nice picture of that and put it somewhere that you guys can find it. Okay, so moving into our sound session together. First of all, a caveat that Mother Earth is giving us her best today. We are, last night in the engine house, we were actually in the eye of the storm for our session there, which was incredible, really quite an amazing experience. But today we are very much not in the eye of the storm, we're just in the storm. So please bear with me if the ambient noise gets in the way. All sounds are welcome in the sound space, and really in a way it's quite beautiful when the elements come in for us in this way. We're going to move into some sounds to really help you, I hope, explore your subconscious, even without the benefit of being in the space with me, with the vibrations here. There is every opportunity to use your sound journey as an opportunity to travel inwards, to really explore your yin aspect, your kind of divine feminine qualities, regardless of gender. And as we move into autumn, which is really yin season, I just realised that my sound's on. As we move into autumn, which is really yin season, it's really a beautiful time to really go on the inward journey, to go into the slightly the dark side, the shadowlands. This earlier Libra phase, while we're in the Libra sun phase, is still quite light. You know, we have this Aries fire as well to come in and to support us. Whereas I think once we start to move past our way and into Scorpio season, my absolute favourite, things do get an awful lot more dark and intense. So this is a really nice time to just start peeling back the layers and going a little bit inwards, a bit more time on self-care, on self-study, on exploring the stuff that interests you, that is calling you as you move into the back end of the year. One other word on ritual. I mean, obviously I used to do a lot more rituals in these spaces, and it is a little bit hard to do them in the TP and obviously online, and to appreciate in the same way. I do have some card rituals, and I will be shortly doing a big update on my website, which will be full resource libraries of all the stuff to carry you through each moon, in terms of all the different rituals I share in person. Fire seasons are always really nice to work with fire. I'm working today with my little singing bowl, which I hope not to completely set alight. And what's really beautiful when you're working with fire season, and with full moons in particular, is a little bit of burning, sending stuff back to the ashes to ashes. As I mentioned, I think harvesting is as important. So I've got 2 lists that I've written, and I'm going to do mine separately in my own ritual off camera. However, I've got my list of the stuff which I'm letting go of, which I'm ready to release and send away, and then my list of the stuff that I'm harvesting. So the one that I'm burning is my releasing list. The one that I'm keeping hold of is my harvesting list, and that's going to live on my altar at home with a selection of my crystals that I've got on the grid today, and that's going to be there to inspire me every day in my practice and in my personal work. And I think it's really helpful to not always be burning everything. Sometimes we want to keep hold of it. So perhaps you might like to try the same thing. I'm going to set a little fire on the go here. Hopefully you can actually see this. Can you see my camera even? Yes, it is. Okay, perfect. So I'm reaching for my little personal list that I worked on earlier. I'm going to be dropping this into the flames that I've got going here, my little bowl. And as with all ritual work, it's really nice just to spend time invoking the energies that you're hoping to work with today. So if you want to release these words, release your list away for clarity, for cleansing, to make space for something new because you've already experienced enough of this and you're grateful for that, just make sure you're really clear on why you're letting this go, not just because it's just a thing you wrote down, but actually, has it served you? Have you collaborated enough? Is it time to move on? Or is it just something that you really, really wanted that hasn't worked out that you're having to let go of? That's a really different energy. So make sure you know why you're letting this particular little collection of words go. And maybe take a moment to really hold them in your heart and be thankful for the journey they've taken you on. Thankful for the experience, this Aries cycle from the new to the full moon, from March to October. You can send them away into the flames. There they go. Let's move into some sound. I'm very mindful of my battery and not having the hugest amount available today, so I'm going to lean in slightly, I apologise, and take the light down even further on my screen, so that we can try and preserve enough battery for me to give you a good sound session today. So wherever you are, make sure your headphones are on, or a nice high quality speaker if you prefer. Get cosy. If you're working with cacao or any other teas or journeying elixirs, now's a good time to hold that by your heart. Work with the energy of the full moon. We give gratitude for all that we've received during this cycle. We give gratitude for all that we're harvesting, all that we're carrying forth, and all that we're letting go, all that no longer serves us. It's left its footprints in our journey. Sound will carry you wherever you wish to go. If you wish to have a gentle relaxation, that's what you'll experience. If you wish to go on a more shamanic, explorative journey of self-inquiry deep into the subconscious, then that's also available. into your body to feel your way back into your mind. So you notice a shift, a change, something relaxed, something released. Something softened. Maybe some ashes where something's been burnt away, something you were releasing, and maybe you can now recognize what you're harvesting, what you're left holding on to. So welcome back from your sound journey, your journey through your own Aries full moon, your own harvest moon, whatever that means for you. I always encourage you to write, to journal, to witness and observe how you feel, where you are, what your ritual this evening or whenever you're watching has brought up for you. Perhaps a half hour of meditation has completely cleared for you what this Aries moon means and what you're looking to take forward, and how your goals and visions and dreams and ideas are changing and growing. Maybe it's simply a clearing, like that fire burning away, allowing space for those ideas and ideologies to come in the next few weeks. Whatever it's been for you, I hope you enjoy harnessing the power of the moon and this powerful pervading energy. Astrology and tarot crystals, all these are really just different vibrational tools, in the same way that the bowls, the gongs, all of these sound tools are really just different ways of accessing our frequency, of understanding that we are all just sound, that we're all just vibration. These just vibrate on a much more subtle level, and astrology is a level that allows us maybe a more available access point. I'm sorry to run you guys slightly short. I feel like I haven't played as long as normal, but I'm watching my battery dwindle away. I only have 2% left, and I don't want to cut off and lose everything I've recorded for you. So I apologise if this is a little shorter than you're used to. I think probably I talked a lot because I'm so excited about this moon and the energies and the possibility and opportunity that it holds, and I hope you are too, and that hearing me chat through some of this this grid work and cards has given you some inspirations for your own ritual. I thoroughly encourage you to have a ritual full moon bath if you have not already. Working with some or all of the oils I mentioned: frankincense, rose, eucalyptus, peppermint, rose petals, fresh ginger weirdly can be quite good for this one, and whatever else you feel called to.